Brian Wright, Associate Professor and Director of Undergraduate Programs. So my primary role is teaching. So I'm a general teaching faculty. So I do 2 to 3 classes a year, sometimes more. But then I also direct the undergraduate program. So I'm building the undergraduate degrees, including the BS in data science and the minor in data science, and then eventually probably a BA in data science, which is a lot of work. So I lead a team of people in the undergrad executive committee that are building the undergraduate program. Yeah, so my education background is in education. So I have degrees in economics, public policy, and education. When I graduated college, I went straight to grad school. That's where I got public policy. I ended up working for the Department of Defense for about 8 years. To include my final appointment, I was in the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So I was there as an analytical consultant. That work was enriching, but not exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I went back to school. So I went back to my alma mater, the University of Tennessee, started a PhD program there. I was working full-time as a researcher in the School of Business, which is, at that time, was developing courses around statistics and optimization and business analytics. It's actually one of the first schools in the country to have that types of program. And I was getting a PhD at night in education. I loved it so much, I never wanted to leave. So I stayed. I started teaching courses there. And I got hired to help build a data science program at George Washington, based off the work that we had done at the University of Tennessee, standing up actually flag officer training courses in optimization, econometric modeling, things like that. And so we started to build that master's program at George Washington about the same time that UVA was starting their data science institute. So our cohorts actually would cross paths a lot. We compete with each other. I think GW won a fair share of those. And that's how I ended up hearing about the opportunity at UVA, getting to know Phil Bourne. And then when it became obvious that, the vision here was going to be much larger than what we had planned at GW, I just jumped at the opportunity to come down, and I've been here ever since. Yeah, most of my research is very applied. So it focuses at the intersection of data science and education. So my dissertation was on student engagement, especially as it relates to first-generation students and minority student dropout. So my heart's always kind of been in student performance, especially as it relates to sensitive populations. So at that time, we were using kind of like institutional data to gauge how patterns of student engagement would precipitate grade performance. I carried that over now. I'm partnering with people in the education school, and we're looking at similar metrics for K through 12 education in Albemarle County. So we're trying to predict the effects of kind of this COVID year as it relates to performance. And we're using data science methods to create kind of survival and risk curves, and then developing simulations as it's related to that to be able to predict, how this type of impact, how COVID being out of school for so long could affect certain groups of students in Albemarle County. So those are the types of projects I work on. Also working with a nonprofit that's looking to create a recommender engine for K through 12 schools that relates to buying mathematical software. So a lot of school districts in the country spend a large amount of money on mathematical software that actually doesn't work very well for them. It's kind of a $1 billion industry that has a large loss associated with that investment. And so we've created a really large survey that measures kind of school districts' capability to implement certain types of software based off just the demographics or skills or technology proficiency inside those districts. And then we're working to cluster those schools together, so when new school districts come to us or new individual schools, we can make recommendations about which softwares might work and which ones might not for them, so they don't lose that money, often which they don't have a lot of to spend. When I think about my journey to data science, when I was working on my PhD at night, so I was getting kind of an immersion into the field of education at night, and then working with data-oriented research teams during the day. And it became obvious to me that it was just a matter of time before these two things came together once the methods that we were exploring became more predominant in all sorts of academic fields. And they really had not. So at that time, this was like 2010 or 11, there wasn't much discussion about moving data science or machine learning into social science. Now it's pervasive. And so I think what sparked my interest is just that I happen to be really lucky to be in two worlds at one time. And so I could see that it was obvious that they were going to at some point overlap. And so that's why I continued to pursue education as a point of interest in terms of research and just academic background. But then also I self-taught mostly, Python programming or R programming or machine learning methods. I was the first person in my dissertation cohort ever to go through the School of Education to use a scripting language to defend their dissertation. So I spent a lot of time just explaining what R was during my defense. So I think like my journey, I really benefited from the fact that I could see both of these things at the same time. And then so I just, it seemed obvious that it would be a great career path and something I was interested in. So I just kept pursuing it. And here I am. Fun fact. So I guess I'll just go. I have two. I've been in 12 weddings, which seems like a lot. Like 8 of them all had khaki suits. So I have 8 khaki suits because every groom would not let me use a previous khaki suit. I think I just like the appropriate height to be in wedding pictures. And then another fun fact is my family has a farm in the Shenandoah Valley, which is only about 45 minutes from here. It's a 4th generation farm. So it's my great-grandparents were there. My dad's parents lived on it. And then, of course, my dad was raised there, too. And it's still a working farm about 45 minutes from here. It raises Angus cow. Actually, my cousin, who has a fence that connects to the property, is the one that manages it now. So that's kind of a fun fact about me. There you go.